Michigan State football, their secondary is going to be the deepest it's been in years, but will that mean instant improvement? I don't know. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to, but hey, this summer FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans and making us your first listen every single day. And shout out to the rest of the Locked On Podcast Network. Go make any of those other fine shows your second listen today. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below on YouTube how you're feeling about the secondary, because when we talk with Chase Glasser of Spartans Illustrated, we're going to kick the show off with, just like we were talking before the show, Chase, one of the hottest, if not the hottest button issues for Michigan State the last 3 or 4 years in running. Is it going to be a sunny conversation, you think? Because I think it could be, but boy, howdy, based on the last few years, how could it be?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it could be, right? And I think that you probably have a better chance of that happening this year than certainly the last 2 years, probably going back to 2021. Yeah. And if you look at what Michigan State had in 2021, it was, not a great secondary. That Ohio State game is we all remember that. But that was still a team that won, 11, 12 games. And
they did okay. Yeah, the Peach Bowl. That's right.
Was good enough in a lot of those games. It was not acceptable, but it was, with other things on the team, a great running game, a fairly dynamic offense, really good front seven. It was able to do just enough. This secondary does not have the luxury of having a Heisman caliber running back. I think it will have a fine front seven, but it's not going to have that front seven from 2021 was nasty. Yeah. It doesn't have multiple receivers who are going to be in the NFL. But what it does have, I think, is a more coherent identity as far as what they're going to be doing on the back end defensively. And I think they do have some veteran presence that maybe they hadn't had to the same extent in recent years. So I think the ceiling is certainly higher than it has been in recent years. But I think more importantly, the floor is going to be a lot higher.
And you know what, just to go through, why they could improve this year. There's two big reasons. Well, actually three, but we'll just do two right now, and then we'll tease the third one. That's called showmanship over here, Chase. That's right. Keep the people guessing. The first two, look, the first one's the obvious one of why they can improve. It's because the bar is 500 miles beneath Earth's crust. The last 3 years, they've either been last in the conference or second to last in the conference at opponent yards per game. And, well, last year they were 101st in 20-plus yard pass plays. That was 45 of those plays last season. And also they rated it's a new stat. They scored a 10 out of 10 in this stat. It's want me to gouge my eyeballs out watching them. That's a new analytic right there. It's been bad the last few years. I'm not, stunning anyone with that information. But again, they are as deep as they've been in a while, at least on the back end here. Like safety, your starters right now projected: Dylan Tatum, Nikai Martinez, the transfer from University of Central Florida, who played in every game for the Golden Knights last year. Right behind them, Khalil Majid, former walk-on, who looked pretty solid last year. And then Armarion Smith, our guy, Armarion Smith, Chase. Don't you forget it. That's right. At nickel, Malik Spencer, arguably the best player on the whole defense. And then Angelo Gross, a guy with obviously plenty of experience behind him. And then your corners. Well, yeah, it looks fine with Chance Rucker, Charles Brantley, but they got Ed Woods out of the portal. They got Legend Cavazos out of the portal. They got Jeremiah Hughes out of the portal. And I'm going to shout out Ade Wiley too out there. So there's talent here. It looked like going into the portal season, but man, you slap on Nikai Martinez, Ed Woods, Legend Cavazos, Jeremiah Hughes like that. Just like you said it brilliantly. That raises the floor at least. But then again, as good as that sounds, the pass rush is going to be important here because, that was kind of married the last few years too. Is that, hey, you know what? In 2021, the front seven, it was strong. But, man, I don't care if you have Sauce Gardner and, just name your other guy. Ennis Rakestraw. Let's throw that random Detroit line out there for all my Lions fans. You can have them back there. No one's going to hold their man for like 8 seconds if that's how long the quarterback gets. So will it mean automatic improvement? The floor's certainly raised, but is it going to be satisfactory enough and good enough to, make this defense one that can compete in enough games to go bowling this season? I think so, but this could be just that off-season air around me, and I'm just huffing it all in right now. We're all undefeated. We're all feeling good, but man, I truly don't know.
Okay, so we'll talk about the bowling aspect of it in kind of counting to 6 in a little bit here. Sure. But something that I think we've been talking about, I know you and I have talked about it on this show for a while, is Dylan Tatum. I think he's very good, a leader. I think was he a defensive captain last year? Or it was said he was maybe assuming some sort of a leadership role. I don't know if that's the case or not.
Like a de facto captain, yeah.
Sure, right. I know he's been kind of looked at as a leader. He is now playing what I think is his natural position at safety. I think he was very game as a cornerback, able to go out there and really kind of put his body on the line for the team.
Yeah.
But he shouldn't have been playing corner. In an ideal world, I think he should be playing safety. So
gotcha.
You bring in somebody like Ed Woods, slot him in at corner, you move Dylan Tatum to safety. I think that's going to be a really good thing for the team. And then all of a sudden, it's just having depth. You can rotate, whether it's Charles Brantley still knocking around. Chance Rucker has looked good, though young, at corner. You have some depth there. Angelo Gross at the nickel spot. You have that kind of depth there and positional flexibility. So I think that's going to help. And I think that the defense will be a lot more coherent. I think you saw in the spring game, there wasn't those kind of big back end busts that you saw a lot where people are getting. I remember something that I always got back to, and I know I wrote about this in the article last year. It was in the Michigan game, you had Jordan Hall running with Roman Wilson on a Y cross, like 40 yards across the field.
That's fine. That's fine. That'll work. That's good.
He's a really good, young player.
Yeah.
But that's not putting your players in a position to succeed.
No.
Now, it's if people play in the NCAA 25 video game, if you get 3 people in one zone, somebody's going to be open. That's why a snag concept exists. That's also why you need a pass rush, right? Like it's hard to view these things symbiotically. I think that the secondary will absolutely be better. Now, what that means, it's tough to say, because if somebody can go out there and just get 4.5 yards of carry on you, it doesn't really matter. No, I don't know that that's going to be the case, but it could be. So in the narrow context of talking about the secondary, it's going to be deeper. I think it's going to be more connected. I think they're going to have kind of a better and more sensible defensive ethos. I think that in general, we're going to see a little bit more of a connected and symbiotic defense. I think Joe Rossi is going to be pretty good for this team. His thought of him more as a linebacker guy, which will help that front seven. But I just think you're going to see the team play a lot more connected and communicating a lot better. And something that was talked about a lot was the idea of country cover, or just cushion coverage, people called it, where there's different philosophies when it comes to zone defense. And Michigan State's going to be really multiple. They're going to be able to play a lot of different coverages. They're going to mix in man. They're going to mix in zone. But I do think it will be primarily zone. And this, I think football games ruined a lot of people's ideas of zone coverage, where it's bubbles, you stand in the middle of the bubble, and then if somebody comes into the bubble, you guard them. I remember my mind kind of exploding. I played CYO basketball when I was in middle school. The coach saying, zone defense is still man defense within your zone. Yeah. Now, the question becomes, let's say you're a linebacker, you're guarding the hook curl, and you have somebody running vertical past you and somebody coming in on a slant in front of you. Well, you have multiple people passing through your zone. What are you going to do? And that's where the communication aspect comes in. And that's also where that kind of other aspect of zone defense, pattern matching, comes in, which is a different conversation. But it just all comes down to coaching. It comes down to communication and just kind of an understanding of not just your role, but you need to know what everybody else in the second level, in the third level is doing, so you know how to position yourself and you know your rules on how if I'm a cornerback and number 1 goes vertical, a safety has that, I'm coming down on 2. If you're the backside safety, you're looking, 1-2, you're looking 2-3. There's all these different rules, and it just having veteran players helps with that understanding. Having, I would think, a defensive coordinator that has been quite well regarded, that helps too.
Back with our guy Chase here in a hot second, but first need to talk all your ears off about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. We're talking superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Guys, you think the secondary is deep for Michigan State this year? So are all the items you can find at eBay Motors. It is endless over there. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you are looking for. And best of all, with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every single time, or it's your hard-earned money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. I'll say that again. I like the line that much. You are burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home the huge win. So what are you waiting for out there? Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
So I do think you're going to see improvement. What that means for the team and their broader direction is a little bit of a different conversation, just because what the offense is going to look like is a question. What the front seven is we're going to have to find out. But I don't think that the defensive backfield is going to be the absolute tire fire it's been the last couple of years.
There we go. Hey, shooting for the stars. Just don't be a tire fire. Now, the third reason that there could be, optimism here in the horizons for the secondary, and this actually kind of, speaks more to the whole defense as a unit, is that guy that we've just thrown around a little bit, Joe Rossi, the defensive coordinator out of Minnesota, because I got some stats here. And you know what? Just before we go through all the stats, the reason I'm going to bring all this up is because, yes, it's a new scheme. It's a new system. We're learning on the fly here. It's going to be a quick turnaround. Yes, the staff has been here for 8 months, but still, this is asking a lot to teach players a new scheme. But he's shown that he can instantly impact a defense. Let's take a trip in the time machine back to 2018 when he's with the Gophers. The first 6 Big Ten games, Joe Rossi was not the defensive coordinator during these first Big Ten games of the season for the Gophers. They gave up an average of 43.1 points per game. And at home, you're saying, okay, well, God, they must have just had a really tough schedule, perhaps. They gave up 48 points against Iowa, 53 against Nebraska, 55 points against Illinois. In those 6 Big Ten games, they actually only gave up 30 to Ohio State. That was the fewest amount of points. Okay, PJ Fleck, he was sick of it. He said, all right, we've seen enough. You're out of here. Joe Rossi, you're the interim defensive coordinator. And in those last 4 games of the season, they gave up 10 points, 24 points, 15 points, 10 points. That 15 number on the road at Camp Randall against Wisconsin, that 15 points was the lowest home amount the Badgers scored in the previous 4 seasons. So I know it might be a little apples to oranges. During a season, the players all know each other. Chemistry is a little better, but still, that's quick improvement. Like taking a jump from 43.1 points per game in Big Ten play to all of a sudden giving up just 10, 24, 15, and 10. Like, that's not nothing. Like, I know that, there's a lot of hope this season and we're just, putting all of our eggs in the basket and just praying that things can get better. But there is substantial reason to think that it can get better that quickly. So that's the third reason I just wanted to bring up right there is that Joe Rossi, yeah, he's not just like, oh, yeah, people say he's a good coordinator. Like, no, he is a good defensive coordinator. So can it work in year 1? Stay tuned. Reason to think that it could, though.
Yeah, totally. I know that he's known as a good teacher, a good instructor. And that's so important when you're talking about college kids. I mean, the defensive coverages are so mind-numbingly complex.
Bananas.
What an offense can do is just that's why I think football, I call it the thinking man's war game, because it's so complex in so many different ways. And that's why I think it's the greatest game, just because everybody's job is so different, but it all has to work together, or else your quarterback will literally get killed or your defense is going to get torched. So it's such a complex game, and having somebody who's an instructor, I think, is really going to help. That is his rep kind of in the industry as a good instructor, and somebody who, I think, you look at Minnesota, they're not a school that's bringing in a ton of talent, but they did have guys that were fairly highly rated, and they hit.
Yeah.
Tyler Newbin was really good.
Sure.
The safety whose name escapes me, Winfield Jr., he was on that
Okay.
the 2019 team that beat Penn State that was ranked in the top 10 for a while. They've developed really good players, and you can't prognosticate that kind of success. Nobody knows kind of what college football is going to look like, but I think they have the right guy for what they want to do.
So let's move the conversation. This is technically a gambling conversation because we're going to talk about, win totals, the over under. But this is also just goes beyond that. We're talking expectations for the season because, look, right now on FanDuel, the over under is 4.5. I'm still staying firm that I think that this can be a 7-win football team. It will be a 7-win football team. There is plenty of bright spots on this team. The quarterback, namely, is one. I am a little high on the receiver unit, even though they're replacing a lot of talent from last year. I think both just the talent that they have in the room and also what Brian Lindgren can do on offense, I think it's going to be nothing but a move forward for the offense should they stay healthy. Maybe that's going to be part of our answer to this question I'm about to bring up. But with the secondary also looking like they can improve, the linebackers look solid. Look, 4.5 is still an incredibly low number. I guess, why is it as low as 4.5? Is it just as simple of what, we've been kind of nervous about? Is it just the depth at the offensive line, the depth at defensive line, the two most important units on the football field? Obviously, the schedule has something to do with it. That's a gauntlet in October, but the outside of it, those are pretty friendly games. So, I'm still wondering, okay, I know it's not going to be a Big Ten championship season. I know we're not going to storm for 10 wins this year. But my goodness gracious, 4.5 is a low number. Why? Why?
I would be stunned if this team's not playing in a bowl game. I really would.
Okay.
I think there's a rep out there. You read Athlon or Phil Steele or whatever. Well, Michigan State got raided in the transfer portal, and there's nothing left.
Okay.
Smith, and it's okay. Derek Harmon and Simeon Barrow were newsworthy departures, and they will be missed. But I don't think the actual production that they had, whether it be injury or whatnot, I don't think that quite matches the hype that they got when they left. You know what I mean? It's I don't think that, and there were some others that left, but also we talked about with Ed Woods and LeJon Cavazos coming in from the transfer portal. Michigan State brought in people too. And I just look at the last 2 years where Michigan State missed a bowl game. And go back to 2022. Remember that Indiana game? The second to last week of the year, it was just an absolute meltdown. I think there was a missed chip shot field goal and a bunch of stuff went wrong. You're right there to being in a bowl game with a team that was not very good. Last year, the entire world blows up.
What happened last year? What went wrong last year? I don't remember any of that.
It goes, okay, you look at the top 10 teams, I think, you get shut out twice against Michigan and Penn State, and then Ohio State was not close either. Outside of that, the Rutgers game got blown. That should have been a win. The Maryland game looked bad on paper. I do think if a couple things bounced differently, that could have been a win. The Minnesota game, they were in contact too, right? So it's it looked bad, but literally everything that could go wrong did go wrong last year. And they were still a 4-win team. I would be staggered if this is not a bowl team. I really would. I think, it's not going to be a great team, but I do think it will be a team with an ethos, with a direction, and a coaching staff that is, first of all, present. That is not a stopgap. And I think a coaching staff with experience and a firm direction and a well-established history of kind of punching above their weight. It's going to take a while for it to get going. And, I don't know if it ever will get going to the extent that I'm sure some people want it to. It's a different conference.
Gotcha.
It's a really deep conference.
Yeah.
I think it will be really hard to win a national championship without being at that blue chip ratio. The last coach to really come close was probably D'Antonio in 13 and 15. But it's a 12-team playoff. And I think that this could consistently be, if you are the second, third best team in the Big Ten, you're getting in a lot of years, right? And it'll take a while to get there. And then, once you're in the dance, who knows? But right now, I would just be aghast if they don't make a bowl game. I really, unless, injury, whatever. But I think the kind of industry and broader narrative around them, I just don't think is correct. I think that it's a deeper team than people are giving them credit for. I think it's a better coaching staff than they're getting credit for.
Yeah.
And also for a team like this, for a new coaching staff, those 15 bowl practices are huge. So it's not only good for hopefully having something to watch in late December, but also for, hey, this is really good for just the installing what you want to do with a team, a young team. So I think that's far too low.
Still more to come with our guy Chase Glasser of Spartans Illustrated. But hey, speaking of over-unders, well, where can you make these wagers? How about America's #1 sports book? Of course, we are talking about FanDuel. Yes, right now, as things stand, Michigan State's over-under for wins next year is 4.5. If you're feeling hot about our Spartans, kind of like how me and Chase are right now, go ahead and make that wager over at FanDuel. Or if you already can't wait for that first game of the season, they have the spread. Michigan State right now favored by 11.5 points over the Florida Atlantic Owls. And if you are feeling really spicy about our Spartans, 230-1 odds to win the Big Ten. That's right. That's just a $1 bet to rake in $230 should they win the Big Ten championship. My goodness gracious, you talk about a great celebration party with that money. Guys, I love sports. I love them so much, probably like you do. But as the playoffs have winded down, we're getting fewer games, and the sports are not sporting like we want them to. But FanDuel is here to rescue us. They keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So just head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. It's FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Like, Lord knows that I've been burned many a time thinking that I'm way smarter than Vegas and, they don't know what they're talking about with these totals. But, we have talked about, we know that there are issues with this team, especially, I'll say the D word again, depth, especially in the trenches. And we know that injuries can be an issue in the game of football here around these parts in East Lansing. But, 4.5 is just such a low number. Like, that's at the basement of Power 4 teams. It's like, things might be bad, but my goodness gracious, yes. Just like you said, Chase, I'm glad you brought this up. There is a lot of hullabaloo around that. Oh, my goodness gracious, 20-some or 30-some transfers left Michigan State. Does anyone out there want to talk about the guys they added in the portal, or are we just going to ignore that whole portion? Not just Aiden Childs, but also two really strong linemen, Luke Newman, Tanner Miller. How about a great tight end, Jack Velling?
Yeah. I mean, those are Velling and Childs are going to be difference makers.
Yeah.
First series on offense, right? As well as the offensive line that you're talking about. So, yeah, I mean, Childs is, okay, yes, are there higher profile transfers? Sure. But I mean, if you want to look at one transfer in all of college football that really changes the fortunes of a team, it could be him. Now, he's going to be young. He's going to make mistakes. And, if the offensive line gets dinged up and somebody whiffs a block and then he's hurt in week 3, okay, that's a totally different conversation, but you can't prognosticate that because I think he's going to be really good. Maybe not this year, but I think he'll certainly be good enough this year. And I certainly think he's going to be better than week 1. He's going to be a better starter than the week 1 starter last year. I'm quite confident in that. So,
and it helps that he's, coming over with the coaching staff he knows. This isn't your typical transfer quarterback where he's learning a new system. No, he's already has a year of that system in his body. Pair that along with the physical traits. Yes, that is going to only raise the floor for what the offense can do. Just like you said, and this is why depth is such an issue. Let's say that, God forbid, there's an offensive lineman injury by week 3 of the season. And, in our 2 deep is Dallas Fincher. He has college experience. That's great. Okay, that's your only guy in the 2 deep with college experience. That's not to say that, someone can surprise us or be good right off the bat. It's just that we just simply don't know what we have behind them, whether it's a redshirt freshman, whether it is a former walk-on. And yes, former walk-ons that offensive line can and have worked, but they've also not worked at all. And they have killed their quarterbacks before. So we will see. But
if we talk about, Matt, if we talk about the schedule for a minute, right?
Please. It's relevant. That's very relevant. Yeah.
Florida Atlantic week 1, I could kind of see that, okay, they win by 10 points, but they're kind of in control the whole time. I feel like that's kind of like the Western Michigan game in 2022 where, it's okay. It's looked a little close, but Michigan State was pretty much in control. and everything kind of winds up good there. That Maryland game in week 2, I'm going to be really closely watching just because I don't know, we're going to learn a lot that game, I think, but it's certainly a gettable game. Tagovailoa is not there. Prairie View A&M, Boston College at Boston College could be a little tricky, but still, I think those are both wins. Then, like you said, you get into late September, October, Ohio State, Oregon, Iowa, Michigan. That's going to be tough, but I think you could certainly get one of those. We don't know what Michigan's going to look like. I don't think they have a quarterback. And, the defense is going to be nasty, but go back to 2017, and that Michigan defense was nasty too, and they didn't have a quarterback.
Gotcha.
Now, I don't think that 2017 10-win Michigan State team's walking through the door, but worse Michigan State teams have beaten better Michigan teams, right? So I'm not saying that I would pencil that in, but that I would not shock me if it's a high variance game, it's a low scoring game, and something happens.
Sure.
And then you look at the last 4 games: Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers. I mean, you got to think at least 3 out of 4, and you're dancing. So I'm quietly, I think 7 wins, absolutely. Would not surprise me at all.
Look at us go. Look at us just bringing the sunshine to kick off everyone's weekend here. That's what I'm talking about. So
in 4 weeks, we're going to be a 10-win team, Matt. By the time we're on the eve of kickoff, they're going to be a 10-win team.
That's true. Oh, my God. I will already be pre-purchasing Orange Bowl gear before the Florida Atlantic game even kicks off. You're out of your mind if you don't think I'm making those orders. Let's get you out the door with this because, it's been a pretty upbeat conversation. I think, there are some state fans out there that think, 9 wins is coming up this season. They might be looking at us thinking, let's just 7, these idiots. But I say 7 in the best way possible. And of course it can't be like this every single year, but I think in year 1 of a rebuild, 7-5, I joke about it. Actually kind of serious about it all the time, but I'm looking at the Tax Slayer Bowl in Jacksonville, like it's Pasadena this year, that. That would be a really, really strong start to the year. Yeah. So let's end it on this one. Give us your one unit that you are the most upbeat and positive about for this upcoming season. Let's just keep the happy train rolling here, Chase.
Oh, that's a good one. Obviously you say quarterbacks, you think Childs is going to be, even if he's not fully actualized this year, which I don't think he will be, and I don't think it's fair to expect him to be going to be really good. Right. But I want to talk about the tight ends. Because I think that there's some really good players there. Jack Velling is going to be, I think, an upper tier tight end in the league. It's a league with some pretty good tight ends, but I think he's going to be really good. He was good at Oregon State. Just give me that 7 yards safety blanket, somebody with a young quarterback who might be under pressure a lot, a guy who's a junior, and a true junior who's been around the block, who's played college football. And played in big games against big teams. He's played against Oregon. He's played against Washington. He's played against USC. You have that kind of institutional memory there. Brennan Parachek, he got some snaps last year. It's, again, a true sophomore, somebody who you think might be able to grow up a little bit. And then you have a couple of guys in Filet and Hopper who we haven't really seen, but the rep on them is that they're supposed to be huge and super athletic, really kind of plus athletes. We'll see, right? You kind of put them in the lab, see what you got. But I'd like to at least see them. I think Hopper, he was a Mountain West guy. I think at Boise State, you associate them with some pretty hard-nosed football. And I think that tight end room, a good tight end in this league, can really help you out a little bit.
We have so much stock in Brennan Parachek over here. Locked On Spartans holds 900 shares of Brennan Parachek stock. So we're all about this so far.
Yes. So I think the tight ends, it's going to be, I think, an important position group. It's an important position group in what this offense does as well. They're used a lot of ways. A lot of times they'll put multiple tight ends on the field, use them to block, use them to release. Michigan killed Ohio State with just running a Y leak for 2 straight drives.
Right.
It's I swear to God, it's always open. Where you stalk block, and if the linebacker's coming down to run, you release. I swear it's open every time. So it's such a good security blanket. I'd look at those tight ends to be a position to watch.
Absolutely, that's what I'm talking about. And no better way to get you into the weekend with some upbeat talk here on Locked On Spartans. I know that we've talked about the issues, but I'm always playing devil's advocate with the 4.5 because it's not just Vegas, but it's also S&P Plus only expects 2 conference wins, the K Ford rankings. So it's where are the holes? There are holes, but, it's nice to talk about where there can actually be optimism and improvement. So, Chase, thank you so much. Appreciate your time, as always, my man.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You got it. Folks, hey, you already know we're going to be back. We do this 5 days a week here on Locked on Spartans. But until then, first of all, enjoy your weekend coming up. Second of all, take care of yourselves. Love you all. Go Green.